Am I the a-hole? For telling my neighbor to grow up, get a life, and get the F over the fact that I painted my house a color he doesn't like? I bought a house in a community without an HOA. I wanted my home to be my home, and that includes making it look the way that I want. I also chose a neighborhood that already has fun, colorful houses instead of just plain earth tones. I finally got to the point where I could repaint my house. I picked a soft peachy color with sage, blue, and soft and dark pink accents. Fun and colorful without being too out there. I think if you Google Coolers Blue Sage Peach, you'll see a similar palette. My neighbor Paul freaking hates it and has been complaining since we started the project. He also made his opinion known that he hates our front lawn, lots of wildflowers and sunflowers, fun garden flags, a little free library, etc. Each and every time, I've told him that I don't care. Truly, I don't. And I've suggested a few times that maybe he'd be happier in a HOA community that has control over everything and forces people into having earth-toned homes. Paul got angry when I suggested that and said he's lived in his home for 15 years and shouldn't have to move. I told him okay, well you'll have to learn to live with a little color. Last weekend I was putting in pavers that my niece and I had painted together. They're all things like ladybugs, turtles, birds, etc. in fun colors. I adore them and my niece is so excited she gets to be a part of my home. Paul came over to complain yet again, saying it was all an eyesore and my niece was here, so I just told him, it's time for you to grow up and get the F over what I'm doing with my house. He got angrier and told me that I have no right to talk to him this way, do I know who I'm talking to, etc. I told him to just go away and get a freaking life. If he has so much free time to bitch and moan about a colorful house, maybe he should get a hobby. He stormed off, calling me a nasty piece of work. My niece was cracking up on the side. For the record, no one in my family is uptight, we really don't care about cursing. I know some people still clutch their pearls over it around kids, she's 15, but I'm sure she says worse. Anyway, one of the other neighbors came to tell me that he's been flapping his yap about how disrespectful I am to talk to him like that. She told me that she knows he's a pain, but that he has been in the neighborhood forever and it's worth being nice to him. I don't know. Is telling him to get a life that big of a deal? Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. The house's color scheme sounds gorgeous, something we'd have here in our Inman Park neighborhood. My guess is your neighbor is more upset about the kitschy items in your front yard than the color of your house. Maybe you need some pink flamingos. Paul, it is Paul, right? I want to make sure that I know who I'm talking to. I'm gonna make a deal with you. Every time you're over here bitching about my house or yard, I'm adding 2 pink flamingos to the decor. Every week that you go without bitching, I will take 1 flamingo down. If I hear that you've been talking about me to the neighbors, Duck Anna is coming out onto the porch. Questions? Some giant gnomes would be great companions to the flamingos. They have gnomes for all seasons too. Next time he comes by with a complaint, hi Paul, I put some serious thought into your criticisms over my house. I think we could come to an agreement where if you start to pay my mortgage and my bills, then I will happily adjust the aesthetic of my home to your liking. We could start August 1st. Does that work for you? Otherwise, as the person paying the bills here, I'm going to continue doing whatever I want with my property, and will ask you to not approach me or my property again for this matter. Or a simple, get FD Paul. Up to you. Either way, not the a-hole. I will put up a board in front, trespassers and neighbor, name, are not allowed in this property. Not the a-hole, some people just don't understand when you try to be polite with them, so it is not your fault that you told them to F off, it is their fault. I bet other people would just fall down on their knees and praise this neighbor and do whatever he wants, yeah right. I always am very polite, but if other people do not understand or don't want to understand I become very rude. This saves me a lot of time in future because these people know what I will tell them and they don't even try to pull more crap on me as it just doesn't work. I have such a pet peeve of people being rude then getting completely incensed when you match their energy. He expects to come talk down to someone for their house choices, but imagine if the roles were swapped, he would never put up with that. Some people never learn to not dish out what they can't take. Not the a-hole. He comes harassing you and you need to be nice? Riddle me that one. If the neighbor who is suggesting you be nice has any suggestions on how to keep this blowhard out of you face/property, that would be more helpful than, kids it's both your fault, advice. It may take 2 to fight, but he is the only one creating the situation. You can't walk away, it's your house, so he is actively seeking conflict but is offended that he is called out. You do you and you are not the a-hole. Yep. If it was worth it being nice, he wouldn't be in OP's face all the time, and the neighborhood wouldn't know he's a pain. Not the a-hole. Am I the a-hole? For asking why there was no kiss at brother's wedding? Last month my brother had a vow recommitment ceremony for 10 years married. When they first married they eloped in a civil ceremony. This time they held a small little ceremony in their home with a potluck reception. It was small but us siblings and our spouses and children were invited, our parents were not welcome. I was surprised to see after their vows they simply concluded the ceremony with a hug. Confusing because it's a break from the traditional, so I wasn't sure if the ceremony was done. But anyway, the rest of the day was very nice. This Saturday I was talking to my brother and the vow renewal came up. Well, I ended up asking him why did they just hug at the end? He said that's what he wanted. I told him I just found it really confusing and he said, okay, dismissively, so I felt I needed to explain myself. I just said it's not very traditional, so I'm sure I wasn't the only one confused, and I just didn't understand the logic there, especially because our parents weren't attending, so he shouldn't have any reason to be ashamed. This is where he got upset and told me I should keep some of my unproductive opinions to myself. I said I'm just trying to be helpful. He said I'm overstepping. We quickly ended the conversation and he hasn't responded to a text I sent him yesterday. I was just trying to have a conversation about it with him, but he's always so guarded. I don't think I was an a-hole here. You're the a-hole. You're free to ask the initial question. It's a little intrusive and demanding, but that's not necessarily a-hole behavior. Where you crossed into realm is when you wouldn't accept his response and kept pressing for an answer that you would find acceptable. Your brother doesn't have to live his life in a way that makes logical sense to you. And it is not necessary for you to approve of his choices. You claim that your brother is always guarded, so maybe take a few steps back, respect his boundaries, and give him an apology for overstepping. Asking is definitely a little intrusive and demanding. If I'd been there I would maybe have internally questioned it and then moved on. But the moment OP asked and got the answer, that's what I wanted, was the moment for OP to STFU. Why are they so intense about a thing that literally had no impact on their life? And how exactly are these questions helpful? How is OP being helpful? What are they helping with? You're the a-hole. I said I'm just trying to be helpful. How exactly is your questioning helpful? You asked out of selfish morbid curiosity. There was nothing wrong with the initial ask, but when given an answer and you weren't satisfied, you kept on prying. He doesn't owe you an answer on something this intimate and private to him and his partner. OP was being so helpful. You see, now the couple know that, next time they have a vow renewal, they must include a kiss at the end of the ceremony rather than any other display of affection. Otherwise, they run the risk of poor OP being confused about whether the ceremony has ended. It's not like actually listening to the officiant's words would have given them a clue. Or the couple walking back down the aisle. Or music starting. And do you know what could happen if OP is confused? Human sacrifice. Dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria. / sarcasm just in case. What do you mean, next time? No, they should have jumped into their time machine and redone the ceremony with a kiss, of course. My God, you're right. Very selfish of them to not do this, actually. Am I the a-hole? For telling my fiancé that I'll wear makeup for the wedding if he does? I, 26F, do not wear makeup. I experimented with it as a teen, but I hate the way it feels on my face and I just don't really see the point. My face is my face and I think it's a good one as is. My fiancé, 26M, has never complained and has always said that I look beautiful without makeup. His mother and sisters think it's weird but no longer comment on it as I drew a very firm line in the sand about it early on. We are currently deep in wedding planning. I've picked out a dress and am making arrangements for a hairstylist and such for the big day. My MIL said she would call a friend of hers that is a wonderful makeup artist and would probably cut us a deal. I said no thanks, I wasn't planning on makeup for the wedding as I never wear it. She tried to insist, saying that I would regret not wearing it when I saw the photos, but I held firm. I've seen myself in prom dresses and other fancy occasion pictures and have never wished I had worn makeup. The most I'm going to do is get a spot treatment so my skin looks its best. This upset MIL and she got my fiancé involved. He asked if I would just wear makeup for the ceremony and pictures. I told him I want to look at my pictures and see me. He said it would still be me, just the best version of me. Which pissed me off, not going to lie, so I asked him if he was going to wear makeup to look like the best version of himself. He said no, so I told him that I will make him a deal. The only way I would wear makeup is if he also wore makeup tit for tat in a masculine style. I wear lipstick, he wears lipstick. I wear foundation, he wears foundation. His can be completely neutral, but he has to wear it for the day and do the test run and everything the stylist wants. He said I was being unreasonable but couldn't come up with a reason why the pictures would look better if I wore makeup but not him, so he stormed off. SAL sent me a text telling me I was delusional if I didn't think I needed makeup and to suck it up for one day. Most of my girlfriends are on my side and world's best MOH is ready to throw hands, but some people think it's usual to wear makeup for formal occasions and I'm being precious about it. My brother thinks my conditions were emasculating to my fiancé. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Also, be careful of doing a spa treatment or anything different to your face routine. The last thing you want is to break out right before your wedding. I do the same thing every other month, so I know it's safe. I just decided to schedule one right before the wedding because my skin feels amazing afterward and I figured I'd get a massage and some other things done for relaxation while I'm there. F the makeup. You're about to marry a dude who lets the opinions of his mother and sister affect his relationship. Why do you need to appease his mother on your wedding day? Why are the demands and wishes of his mother and sister more important than yours? What's supposed to be the happiest day of your life, you're gonna start your marriage with your fiancé taking his mother's side instead of yours. Be prepared for your opinions to be pushed aside for your future monster-in-law once you start having babies. Good luck OP. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. I got married in the early stages of COVID with the 10 people rule. Our photographer was included in the 10, but I didn't have a hairstylist or a makeup person. I just did my regular hair and makeup. I love that I look like my normal self in those pictures. Stick to your beliefs. You are awesome. Op replies. Ah, that's great. I bet you looked beautiful. Happy people always look good. I would take this a step further. If he lets the pressure from his mother continue to impact him, he needs to be out of the wedding. That will not stop through marriage. He needs a backbone now or it is doomed to be a marriage of 3, where the wife has her opinion and argues it with husband and mom each time. Not a good situation. Right? This is relatively minor, but imagine a more significant disagreement about how to raise children and the husband just operating as a representative for his mother. No thank you. Am I the a-hole? For not giving my sister who eloped as generous as a gift as my sister who had a traditional wedding? My parents had me when they were really young, are still together now and had 2 more kids, my sisters Katie and Jess later on. I'm 15 and 17 years older than them respectively. Because of the age gap, we didn't really grow up together and sometimes I feel more like an uncle than a big brother to them. I've been fortunate in my career to do relatively well and I've typically been pretty generous with them when it comes to things like birthdays, Christmas, and graduations. My sister Katie got married 2 summers ago and had your typical traditional wedding. I'd guess around 125 people were there, it was very nice, and definitely not cheap. I don't know how much they spent but I know my parents and her husbands only were able to contribute for about half the cost. The rest was my sister and her husband paying for it. They were super cool and let me and my wife bring our 2 kids even though I later found out the venue charged the same for kids as adults for the food and everything. It meant a lot and I didn't want their inclusion to be a burden so my wife and I gifted them $500 as a wedding present to cover our plates plus a little extra. My sister Jess has always been more low-key. When she got engaged she told us all she would likely elope and nobody tried to convince her otherwise because it made sense for them. They aren't flashy and have always seemed pretty frugal, definitely not the type to throw a big wedding costing tens of thousands. They announced a couple weeks ago that they eloped in the mountains with just them and the necessary witness. I was happy for them and didn't feel like I missed out on anything. I've been to enough weddings that I don't have FOMO, I'm just happy they had what felt right for them. Since they didn't have a wedding, I didn't think to get them a wedding present because no wedding, but they did just go under contract on their first home together so my wife and I got them a $100 gift card to Home Depot. I remember when I first bought my first home there were a lot of home improvement stuff and I made about 100 trips there so thought it would be a nice gift. Apparently she asked Katie what they got for their wedding and she told them and now felt a certain way about our gift to them. She made a comment about feeling like their marriage wasn't respected enough because they didn't throw a big party and said it felt like I was showing favoritism. I told her I have Katie more because she hosted my whole family and I know how expensive that is having paid for my own wedding. Jess kinda rolled her eyes and walked away after that interaction and we haven't talked about it since. That was this past Sunday. I thought it would be understood that the situations were just different and it's unreasonable to expect the same generosity when you don't give any generosity, aka hosting and feeding people, by not having a traditional wedding and not inviting us to celebrate with them. Maybe I am wrong though so wanted some neutral opinions. Not the a-hole. You got a wedding gift for the older sis partly to cover the cost of 4 plates at their wedding. For my wedding last year, which wasn't flashy, dinner was more than $100 a plate. Your $500 gift wouldn't have covered the cost of your dinner, I think. At the end of the day, you likely helped fund their wedding and nothing more. The other sis didn't even have a wedding, so her gift is all gift. She's a major for comparing the 2 situations. Honestly I wouldn't have even given a gift to someone who didn't have a party. That you did and she's now saying it wasn't enough makes her the a-hole of the story. OP replies. We're in the Midwest, so not crazy coastal prices. The venue charges about $100 per person. My friend works in their business office. I think I ended up covering our plates plus a little bit. I know some of the weddings I've been to in NYC can be over $200 per person which is crazy. Your $500 gift for 4 people at a wedding is basically right on par with a standard gift from a guest. So I think you undershot if you were looking to give extra as a brother. Regardless, your other sister didn't even have a wedding, so there is no cost to cover, which would make $100 pretty reasonable considering your other sister probably didn't even get $100 from you after expenses. I get the concept of the gift for Katie being bigger because they had a formal wedding and you're covering for all of your plates. But, also, she's your sister. So I'm sure part of it was wanting to give your sister a nice gift to start her new married life? Maybe? I personally think it should be. Jess is also starting married life. She and her now husband just opted to not have a big wedding, but they are buying a house. So was the gift more of a housewarming type of gift, as opposed to I'm celebrating your new marriage kind of gift? Did they have a registry of any kind? Only asking because I do know some people who eloped or had a micro wedding and created a registry because people, family and friends, still wanted to gift them something to celebrate the big step in their lives. It wasn't about the covering of their plates, it was about their love of the couple and their relationship with them. Not saying what you gave was wrong, but I can sort of see how Jess may have felt a bit slighted, kinda tacky to ask what you had gifted her sister, but also, sisters, so. OP replies. I was not told about any sort of registry. I know a few people who eloped and was never sent a registry for those. Personally, I think it would rub a lot of people the wrong way. For Katie, it really was I wanted to make sure we weren't a burden. My kids were the only kids invited to an otherwise child-free wedding and my wife and I were very grateful and wanted to make sure their generosity wasn't punished. The fact that your sister allowed you to bring your kids to an otherwise child-free wedding is huge these days. While I don't think you're an asshole, I am afraid your other sister might see your $500 gift as favoritism. I would talk to your sister who eloped and explain your perspective so she understands where you are coming from. I do agree, though, that if you aren't included and no registry is shared, there really shouldn't be any expectations from the eloped couple. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. My wife and I eloped. Months later my mom asked if we were going to do an open house. We never did, nor did we expect family to give us anything. It's just what happens when you elope versus having a traditional wedding. OP replies. Yeah, a few of my best friends eloped and this is the sentiment they shared as well. I would have loved to if my wife was on board, But she wanted the special day she envisioned, so I wasn't going to keep that from her. Was it worth the $20K when we were also trying to buy a house? Who's to say? No one is a-hole here. Nobody is ever entitled to a gift or a gift worth a specific amount of money, but I can totally understand how giving your sibling a cash gift in an amount that's drastically lower than what you gave the other sibling for the exact same occasion would be looked upon as kind of a middle finger, so I can't say she's the asshole for being offended. I don't understand or agree with your way of thinking about wedding gifts as repayment for inviting you to the reception at all, but you were within your rights to make the decision you made, so I can't say you're the asshole either.